Battery Park, and mybeachradio.com, a Townsquare Media station. More of the Jersey Shore's best oldies next.
Hi, Marianne Levy, Beach Radio 1160 and 1310 and mybeachradio.com. Broadcast from the Preferred Home Healthcare Studio 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Preferred is there to help you. Preferred Home Healthcare with feeling.
WOBM News presents Ask the Congressman with Tom MacArthur. This is your chance to discuss the issues with 3rd District Representative Tom MacArthur. The phones are open, 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Congressman begins now. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
The ascendance of Republicans and of Donald Trump in Washington have triggered a ferocious backlash in Ocean County, in New Jersey, and across the country. Polarization that might not have a parallel since the late 60s. Instead of organizing public meetings, Republican members of Congress suddenly find themselves being dared into attending them. Then they're castigated if somehow they are not willing to be ideologically ambushed, or if by some miracle they happen to have other plans. What else under the Trump presidency has suddenly turned the Capitol into a cauldron? Is Obamacare pushback the cause, or a symptom of a greater ailment? Here in Tom MacArthur's 3rd Congressional District, all of that is a sideshow as a torrent of heroin continues to decimate lives and families. What are the priorities of a task force he's on, whose job it is to close that floodgate? After considerable time and deliberation, the Pentagon directs the next generation of air-to-air refueling craft to be housed at 2 installations, and one of them is the Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst in Burlington and Ocean. What does that mean for stabilizing our region's shifting job and economic vista? And then there's your money. 9 years after the near financial disaster in America, why are banking regulations developed in its aftermath being challenged? We'll explore, and we'll hear from you all during this edition of Ask the Congressman. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
We had a crowd outside, and they were pretty vocal about what's on their minds. But I'll tell you the thing that overall, even though the buzz on the web has been about attending town hall meetings or not attending town hall meetings, and all of the slurs that have been thrown around out there unnecessarily, the basic thing I'm getting here is fear about where the country is going under a Trump administration. And you have people who are looking to you as basically either a conduit to Donald Trump and the administration, or as an accessory to Donald Trump and the administration. And I don't think either one of these are necessarily directly true. Are you getting the same impressions that I am?
Well, I do. Certainly people are, they're upset, they're worked up about a lot of issues, and there's a lot of legitimate concerns and fears people have, and I'm hearing those. I certainly hear what my constituents are saying, and I'm trying to find every means I can to hear them. This week I've met with Muslim leaders from South Jersey about their concerns on the travel ban, and I learned some things about, from their perspective. It was very helpful for me. I met with a group of people that had been protesters at my office last week when I was in Washington, and they respectfully protested, and I was happy to meet with them. We disagreed on a lot of issues, but I think it was important for them to be able to tell me what they were concerned about. I think it was important for me to be able to share where I was coming from and to hear each other. And then I stopped in at a local Democratic club just because it was in the same building, and I saw it, and we talked for quite a while as well. I hear the concerns of people, and I want to find every way that I can to respond to those.
Now, the episode of Marlton, this was a town hall meeting that was not a town hall meeting that you organized. This was organized by, to the best of my knowledge, Indivisible?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't even call it a town hall. It was organized by two groups, Indivisible and New Jersey Citizen Action. Mm-hmm. These are progressive activist groups with organizers that have a very specific agenda. You can go on Indivisible's website and see what their aims are. And so this wasn't a town hall that I didn't attend. This was what was really last night a progressive values rally. That's what people were shouting about, issues that matter to them. I respect that, Tom. I honestly do. People have the right to gather and speak and express their anger. I respect that completely. But that was not an event that I needed to be at. First of all, I had a teletown hall last night with thousands of people on the phone with me, but that event followed a script. The woman that organized it was scheduled to meet with me the day before and canceled abruptly. That's right out of the Indivisible handbook. She publicized it publicly before ever even asking me if I was available to attend it. And that's right out of their handbook. Embarrass your congressman. Make it look like they're afraid to come. That's not productive dialogue. And I recognize that in the middle of all of that noise are well-intentioned constituents of mine who want to be heard. And I am, and my team are finding and looking for every way where we can hear from my constituents without getting caught up in these outside activist groups that I think are causing a good deal of trouble to advance their own aims.
There's another thing that came up, and that was the basically twisting or misquoting of a comment about money changing hands. A lot of people downstairs in the last hour were more than adamant. They're not getting paid. They're out there because they want to be there. I think we need to clarify that comment about, paid protest.
Sure. Of course, I know that my constituents aren't being paid. I know that. I made a comment a week or two ago that I think has been misunderstood. There are paid organizers behind much of this at some of these organizations that I've mentioned. There's no question about that. And they're outside of my district. So that's not in dispute. But I recognize, Tom, that my constituents that are coming to these events, the people that are downstairs right now, I know they are just well-intentioned people that have concerns and want to be heard. And I want to find ways where I can hear from them. And we'll continue to do that. There's never been one way for me. I've done these programs with you on a regular basis. I've had teletown halls on a regular basis. I did 20 or so coffees with the congressman, which is a form of town hall in the last Congress. And I've got newsletters and social media. I try in every way possible to communicate and hear from my constituents, and I'll continue to do that even in this tumultuous time. I'll find ways to hear directly from the people that are upset. I'm just asking them to understand that when these progressive activist groups with a very clear political agenda of embarrassing and damaging members of Congress are in the mix, it makes that difficult. And we have to work through that.
Yeah. There are parallels to when the Democrats controlled Congress and there was a Tea Party movement.
Yes, yeah.
That was the better part of a decade ago already. And the difference, I think, is that this is a much more savvy group on social media. Tea Partiers really weren't advocates of social media. In fact, really didn't like it. But now we have people who are adept at using it. But the interesting thing is that sometimes the facts kind of gallop out of control. And one newspaper actually had you here last night when you were supposed to be in Merle. So it's just being preached as gospel now. It's in the paper, so it must be true. But I can tell you he wasn't here because I was in the building till late last night. I didn't see you. So,
well, I wasn't.
Okay.
But bear in mind, I was on the phone with thousands of people last night, and I recognize the limitation of teletown halls. They have their great benefit of reaching a lot of people, and sometimes people that couldn't otherwise participate. I recognize that the limitation is people want the face-to-face, and I want the face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find a way to get back to it.
All right. Should we take a call?
Sure.
Let's go to caller 1, please. And thank you for calling Ask the Congressman. What's your first name? Where are you from? Can you turn your radio down, please? Oh, someone's outside. Can we go to the next call, please, Mark? Hi, you're on Ask the Congressman. Thank you for calling. What's your first name? Where are you from?
Hello, I'm John from Brick.
Hi, John.
Hello. Hello, Congressman. I'm MacArthur. How are you?
I'm good, John. How are you tonight?
Very good. I'm calling about tax reform, specifically the fair tax, H.R. 25. One of the things I'm hearing a lot about in Washington is this border adjustability, which is part of the Better Way plan, which is in the Republican caucus in the House, and it probably won't pass the Senate. Like in other words, there seems to be a lot in the Senate that are involved, both sides are against it. But the fair tax addresses that particular issue. Another thing is, which is very poor about the present tax system, is that the IRS only collects about 80 to 85%. In other words, about 15 to 20% evasion. And with the fair tax, that will not happen. In fact, there's a study which is being done by our national organization by a professor from the Jacksonville University. His name is Dr. Sabula. And it's due out in March. In other words, the report I hear is complete. And I would, as you know, we have met with you, our group, our third district. And
I remember, John.
Yeah.
Well, let me respond. Let me respond a little bit, if I can, to that. I think looking at the tax code is probably the second major thing that's going to happen in this Congress. I think the first thing is health care reform, and there's a lot around that that's been very contentious. And I think the second major thing is probably either dealing with the financial reform, the Dodd-Frank Act, or it's going to be taxes. But I think tax will be early this year. And there's a lot of different ideas being debated on that. You mentioned the border adjustment tax, which, there are a lot of companies that love that. For example, exporters love that tax. People that import products into the United States are not so thrilled about it.
That's picking winners and losers. The fair tax doesn't pick winners and losers. That's the thing.
Well, I hear you, and I'm not convinced yet about where we should land on that, to be honest with you. I think I agree with you. The federal government shouldn't be picking winners and losers. It doesn't mean that I'll oppose that. I have to see the whole plan. I'm involved in a number of key areas. Ways and Means and tax code isn't one of them. So
right.
I'll look at that as it comes out of the Ways and Means Committee, and I'll talk to different groups that I think have insight into that and come to a landing on it. But I think the
Congressman, sorry to interrupt you there, but I wanted to ask.
Okay, John, we're going to have to. This will be your last question, okay, John?
Okay. Yeah, would you be willing to meet with our national chairman, Steve Hayes, in your office in Washington, D.C.? He goes to Capitol Hill once a month, and I'm not sure if Caitlin is still your scheduler, but would you be willing to meet with our national chairman?
Well, John, I have said to you before that I would meet with you, and I did meet with you, and I'm likewise. I'd be happy to have your national chairman to my office. I'm always happy to talk to people that have ideas. It's how I get better at what I do. So I'd be happy to have that conversation.
Okay, thank you, Congressman, and thank you also, Tom.
Thank you for calling, John.
Right.
May we take one more, please? Hi, you're on Ask the Congressman. What's your first name? Where are you from?
Yes, hi. Am I on the air now?
Yes, you are.
Hi, my name is Mark Callahan. I'm from Bayville, New Jersey, and thank you for taking my call.
What's your question, Mark?
Well, I have a question for the Congressman about meeting his constituents in person. I was lucky enough last night to actually get through and talk to the Congressman on the town hall So once again, Congressman, thank you for actually holding that. However, all right, I'm out here with about 50 to 100 new friends that I just made this evening. And earlier I asked everybody whether or not anybody was getting paid, because I'm not. And according to everybody out here, they weren't getting paid either. So right now, there is a group of your constituents that would like to meet you that are not getting paid. And yes, we may have progressive ideas. And yes, you know, you may be in a red district, but there are a lot of progressives here. And Congressman, if you do teletown halls, the biggest problem with that is that your constituents can ask a question, but what they get for an answer is they get a bunch of talking points, and then there's no follow-up that's allowed. That is not how you're going to really meet your constituents and know what we feel and what we really care about. And, you know, it's great that you keep bringing up that you met with a group of Muslims, but you know what? There's a lot of people out here right now that would love to meet you. So, you know, why don't you just come to a window and just kind of wave out and say hi?
Okay. Well, Mark, let me try to respond. At first, I'm in the middle of a show, so I'm going to respect the people that are listening and stay where I am. But I hear you, and I remember our conversation last night, and I'll repeat what I've said a few times. I want to find many means of speaking to people. I do want that, including face-to-face meetings. I have them. I have dozens of meetings scheduled during this week, and I am meeting with people, some who have things they want to share with me. I want to get back to the kinds of coffees with the congressman and public events that we've had, but I think it's also realistic to say that these meetings, like the one held last night in Marlton, was organized by Indivisible and New Jersey Citizen Action. I know you and the demonstrators outside are not paid. I know that. But there are paid organizers with a very specific agenda that organize events like last night. And their agenda...
That is true, and there is nobody that actually organized this event. This is very organic.
Well, fair enough. Let me say one other thing.
And, all right, so my other question for you then is can you do a better job of updating us on what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, coming out with public statements, going ahead and updating things on your Facebook page a lot more often than you actually do?
Mark,
a lot of us don't even know what your feelings are on a lot of key topics right now.
Do you go to his webpage?
Mark, yeah, let me respond to that, Mark. First, you mentioned a moment ago that you get from me talking points. I have never been guilty of giving somebody else's talking points, if that's what you mean, in my life. When I speak and when I write, those are my thoughts. When things go out of my office, I read them, and I make sure that those are what I believe. And we update our Facebook page, I think, nearly every day. There are things on there. We have a newsletter that goes out to a lot of people in the district, and I will find, you have my commitment that I will always try to find ways to engage, to hear from you, and let you hear from me. That's my job as your representative, and that includes getting back to face-to-face events. We're trying to find a way to do that that's in a healthy, productive way that doesn't let progressive activist groups with a very clearly stated goal of embarrassing and damaging members of Congress to intervene. That's what's causing the problem.
Respectfully, that is not my point at all. My point is to let you know that there are a lot of progressives that are not activists, that just have a very different view than you do and what our current so-called president does.
I want to hear from you.
We need you to stand up for us.
I want to hear from you, and I would encourage you, Mark. I'll take a meeting with you and others in my office and talk to you about your ideas. I'd be happy to do that, or someplace else. Doesn't even have to be my office, but it can't be a show that's just trying to get a YouTube moment for people that want to use that later on for their own agenda. But if you and others want to meet with me to talk about your concerns, I would be happy to do that. You have my word that I'll do that.
Then are you going to organize something besides a teletown hall so that we could discuss things like the 22 million people that could be losing health care?
Well, here's my suggestion. We had some respectful protesters outside our Evesham office, our Marlton office, last week when I was in Washington. We scheduled a meeting, and I met with a half a dozen people from that organization this week, and we had clear dialogue where they shared with me what was on their mind. I'm inviting you to do the same thing. Get some people together, not for a show, Mark, but to actually come and talk to me. This group came to me with a clear outline, 7 points. They wanted to know in detail what I thought, and we had real discussion and debate around that. I'm offering you that same opportunity. I will take the time. I'll do it on a weekend. I'll do it at night, and I'll be happy to talk to you and some of the folks that want to talk to me about the concerns you have.
All right, well then, all right, Congressman, I will give you one concern that's been shared with me by several people that I'm standing near right now. All right, so what are you going to do to help us and the 22 million other people that potentially could lose health care insurance?
All right, let me tell you first what I have done. That process started last month, and I voted no under a fair amount of pressure from my own party. I voted no to start that process because I felt it was starting too fast. And so, for 9 Republicans to stand and say no, this is going too fast, that's the first thing that I did and could do. Since then, I have been in probably a dozen or more meetings in Washington trying to shape how this looks, because I am committed to fighting for the 11 million people that are in the Obamacare marketplace. I don't want to see them just suddenly left out in the cold. I am committed to the people that are in Medicaid expansion. That's another 10 million or so. And I don't want to see the rug pulled out from under them. And I've made it clear to my party leaders that we must keep our word to these people, that we need to fight for those with pre-existing conditions, that the American people have made it clear that they want to have coverage for those up to 26 years of age. I have lived, and I know I'm getting a signal we have to take a break here, but I have I have lived through, Mark, twice the dark side of healthcare. I shared this last night in the Teletown Hall. I was a boy. I was 4 years old when my mother died of cancer. My father paid off medical bills until I was in college from that because he had no insurance when my mother died. And I watched him my whole life working 3 jobs because he didn't want to declare bankruptcy. And then as I became a young man and had a family, my first child was born with a lot of special needs, had multiple brain surgeries through her life. She lived to be 11, and I had over $1 million worth of medical bills. And if I hadn't had insurance, I would have been destroyed before I ever got started. So I am telling you that I am personally committed and am fighting to make sure that we get health care reform right. That said, the current system is not sustainable. And so we have to repair it. We have to get this right, and I'm working to get it right. And I hope you'll pass that on to the people that you're with right now.
Well, no, so Congressman, and I do appreciate that answer, and thank you very much for that. But one quote that you actually did say last night was that premium increases can be up to about 20%. In an article that I just read earlier today in New Jersey, the premium increases are only 5%. So when I mentioned talking points earlier, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you go ahead and you take something that Speaker Ryan is mentioning and you go ahead and blab about that, then that becomes a talking point. So let's talk about, exactly how it's going to affect people in New Jersey.
Well, Mark, I hear you, but realize that healthcare.
It's not just giving the stories, all right, but tell us exactly what fixes you have in mind.
That's more than we can do on this phone call, but I'm not repeating somebody's.
Why we need something in person.
Okay, Mark, you've made your point.
I hear you, Mark. And we'll talk again. I made an offer to you. Come and see me, and we'll talk. I'm going to ask you not to talk. I'm going to ask you not to talk over me when we talk, but we'll talk.
Thank you, Mark, for calling.
That. All right, thank you.
Everybody who's on the line, please stay there. We respect that you're on the line, and we want to get to your calls, and we will do that right after this.
Call Congressman Tom MacArthur now, 732-505-1160. Ask the Congressman continues next. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
You know where the drinks at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville are always cold? The award-winning food is always hot? And the casino floor is even hotter? It's Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Book your stay at resortsac.com. The fun is here. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Don't miss out on an exciting lineup at Resorts. On March 11th, experience a narrative and musical account of the phenomenon that defined an era with We've Only Just Begun, Carpenters Remembered. For tickets, visit Ticketmaster.com or the Resorts box office.
Beach Radio 1160 and 1310, along with Alive Again Alliance Church, are proud to present Alive Again every Sunday morning from 5:30 to 6:30 a.m. In this chaotic world, Alive Again brings you the life-transforming words of Jesus. Listeners will hear uplifting messages and have an opportunity to call in with questions. Guest speakers will also join the program to discuss important local topics. So tune in to Alive Again every Sunday at 5:30 a.m. only on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
For one night only, the Ocean County College Foundation and the Jay and Linda Grunin Center for the Arts are partnering to present Hotel California, a salute to the Eagles, to benefit the students of Ocean County College. On March 18th, it's an evening of the Eagles' mega hits, including Take It Easy, Heartache Tonight, and of course, Hotel California. If you're a fan of all the music from the Eagles, this is an evening not to be missed. For tickets, go to grunincenter.org.
Keep the questions coming. Call now to talk to Tom MacArthur, 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions at WOBM. Ask the Congressman continues now. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
Congressman Tom MacArthur, we have spent a great deal of time on one subject, but I want to get to another one, and it's very important because there's a lot of action going on about this. The heroin task force that you're on is starting to carve some inroads. There's a lot going on in Ocean County to turn this tide around. What's happening on your end? And I'll tell you what's happening over here.
Well, at first, it's a crisis of terrible proportion across the country, but New Jersey has 3 times the national overdose death rate as the rest of the country on average, which is devastating. And South Jersey has been particularly hit hard. The town we're in right now, Toms River. So it's very close to home. I don't think I know anybody who doesn't know somebody that's been affected by this. I lost a friend of mine to addiction. I know people that have lost their children. It's devastating. I was on the task force last year, and it's a rigorously bipartisan effort. It's about 85 members. It's a big group, and the 2 chairs, there's a Republican chair and a Democratic chair, do not proceed under the task force unless they both agree. And I was asked this year if I would be the co-chair, so I'm chairing the group this year. It's difficult work because it's sad to see what this is doing to people and families, but we've got to get to the bottom of it. So I spend a fair amount of time on it. We had a hearing a week and a half ago on synthetic opioids because that's a big part and a growing part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have another hearing this week with families that have lost somebody to addiction, and we're going to talk through how that started and how it happened. This past Saturday, I was with the Toms River narcotics unit and the leadership of the police department, and we were talking about some well-intentioned laws, but how they're sometimes being misused and leaving dealers on the streets, and the things we need to do there. So there's a lot we've got to get our arms around: how to help the addict, how to get drugs from coming into the country, and it's pouring in over the southern border. That's where most of the current heroin is coming from. The Toms River Narcotics Unit told me that virtually all of the heroin affecting this area is coming over the southern border. So we've got to stop that. We've got to get dealers off the streets, and we've got to help those that are struggling with addiction.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's not a simple problem because you've got the supply side, you've got the law enforcement side, you've got the treatment side, you've got people who are trapped in it, and they didn't even know they were going to be trapped in it. Yeah. Because they ran out of prescription. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Well, and one of our witnesses at the synthetic opioid hearing is the leading U.S. official in this area. She's with the National Institutes of Health, and she runs the Addiction Pathology Center, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that. But But she told us that 80% of heroin addicts started with legal prescription drugs. In most cases, legally prescribed even.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't somebody just abusing it from the start. So that's pretty disturbing, and there's a lot of pieces to it. I had a meal yesterday, actually, with an ex-addict, and we were talking about his own experience and how he broke free. It was instructive for me and helpful to hear that. Today, I had a meeting with a football player, ex-football player, professionally, who's working with a terrific organization that's trying to help young people find their passion so they don't have to go down the road of drugs to seek satisfaction. And there's so many elements to this crisis.
And there are a lot of people who are mobilizing to fight it with us. So if you're listening tonight, and I thank you for listening, and I'm going to tell you too, March 20th at Ocean County College, this program will be on location. We are doing a live interactive forum about this issue. This is going to involve Ocean County Prosecutor Joe Coronado, Ocean County Sheriff Mike Mastronardi. It's going to involve John Brogan, the Toms River dad, who was strung out and fought his way all the way back and is now an ardent proponent of treatment. We're going to have 2 treatment experts on that panel. And if you show up for that in the Grunin Center on March 20th, you will have a chance to ask a question directly. And if you don't want to speak on camera, we'll have a room for you. You can talk to somebody individually.
I think that's terrific.
That's going to be 7 to 8 at OCC in the Grunin Center.
You know, and you mentioned the fellow that's fought his way back. It reminded me, I shouldn't say ex-addict. It's really a recovering addict because people are in recovery for years and years and maybe for a whole lifetime. Once addicted, it's a lifelong struggle for people, and we've got to see it that way and help people for the long run.
Absolutely. We're going to get back to your calls in just a couple of minutes. We're going to step out for just a second, and we hope you'll stay with us. I'm Tom Mongelli with Tom MacArthur. We have one more half hour. We'll be right back.
More with...
Let me get you a...
Oh, sure. Jersey Shore weather.
Balmy weather up through Saturday. Feels like springtime. Could be some strong thunderstorms to end all this warmth Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. Then back to much colder weather by Sunday. Overnight, we can't rule out a shower or thunderstorm, especially north and west. Lows in the low 50s. Patchy ground fog possible just about everywhere. Near record warmth on Friday. Partly sunny, a high of 71. Thunderstorms Saturday afternoon and evening. Highs around 70. Much colder with sunshine and mid-40s Sunday. I'm meteorologist Mark Thibodeau.
Beach Radio 1160 and 1310, along with Alive Again Alliance Church, are proud to present Alive Again every Sunday morning from 5:30 to 6:30 a.m. In this chaotic world, Alive Again brings you the life-transforming words of Jesus. Listeners will hear uplifting messages and have an opportunity to call in with questions. Guest speakers will also join the program to discuss important local topics. So tune in to Alive Again every Sunday at 5:30 a.m. Only on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
Tune in every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. right before Preferred Company with Joel and Marianne for the lighter side of finance, hosted by David Crossan.
David is a financial advisor with a certified financial planner designation and senior vice president of investments with Wells Fargo Advisors. He'll lighten your day with practical financial guidance.
Be sure to join David Crossan Wednesdays at 7:30 a.m. for the lighter side of finance on Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
Wells Fargo Advisors, LLC is a registered broker-dealer and a separate non-bank affiliate of Wells Fargo and Company.
I know a good sale when I see one, and this is one you don't want to miss.
Get President's Day savings at Sansone Jr.'s 66 Nissan now. Don't miss your chance to drive away in a 2017 Nissan Versa for only $10,900. That's right, just $10,900 for a brand new Versa. Or hit the road in America's #1 family car, the 2017 Nissan Rogue, leased for $169 a month.
You don't see that every day.
That's right, Chris. We have dozens of financing options to choose from with guaranteed credit approval in 15 minutes or less. Plus, if you owe more on your trade than it's worth, we can take you from upside down to right side up with our negative equity relief program. Call now, 855-66 Auto Mall, or online at 66nissan.com. Get President's Day savings on Nissans now.
Sansone Jr. 66 Nissan, where we work hard to make car buying easy.
$19.99 down, 36-month lease, $21.68 due at signing, 2 or more at this price, plus taxes, tags, and fees this month only with approved credit.
Congressman Tom MacArthur is here to talk to you. 732-505-1160 or tweet your question at WOBM. This is Ask the Congressman. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Tom Mongelli with Tom MacArthur, and we're going to go right back to the phone. Sally from Manahawkin is on the line. Sally, thank you for calling. What's your question tonight? And please, if you could limit it to one question, that would be great. Our lines are jumping.
Absolutely, and I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Congressman, for taking my question. And I know that you can all currently hear a little bit of an accent.
Yes.
I just want to reassure you that although I was born and raised the first 18 years in Britain, I am actually a very proud naturalized American citizen.
Well, I thought that was a Manahawkin accent, Sally.
Some people have actually asked me if I'm from the Bronx. But seriously, thank you so much for taking my call. I'm actually a very proud, not only American, but I'm a very proud mom. And I'm also a very proud educator in the state of New Jersey. And my question to you, this is not to get you on the offensive, this is really because I'd really love to know exactly where you stand on this, is as an educator and as a mother, I'm a little bit concerned about the current administration and how they've rescinded guidelines, federal guidelines, for transgender students in the educational setting, and how they've referred it to the state. And the reason I'm concerned, and I'd like to give you very quickly a scenario because I know you're very busy, is if you'll take, for example, a student, we'll call her Abigail, and say Abigail considers herself and believes, obviously, she's transgender, she believes she's a girl, and her parents are very supportive. She enters the education system as a girl, and then as state rules change, then all of a sudden Abigail now has to use not only the boys' bathroom, which raises questions amongst her fellow students, but also the boys' locker room, which raises questions amongst her fellow students. As a mom and as an educator, I genuinely want to know what you're going to do for students like Abigail on the state level, and also not only the state level, on the county level, but also government. Also when you go to Washington, what your concern is for students like Abigail that educators like me in Ocean County deal with every day.
Okay, well, Sally, first I want to say how much I respect what you do. I have spent
thank you so much.
I've spent a good deal of time with the New Jersey Education Association and the National Education Association, and I want to make sure our young people get the best education they can, and that means...
And they deserve it. They deserve it.
They do, and that means we need to support our teachers.
Thank you.
I'm going to guess from the way you framed the question that you probably won't agree with my answer, but let me tell you exactly what I think about this.
Okay.
When President Obama started getting involved in telling schools what bathrooms that children needed to use, my response was, with all of the problems that we're facing in this nation, all the violence in the world, all of the terrorists who want to attack us, all of the economic pressures that are desperately needing to be addressed, all of the immigration issues that we have, how to support Social Security and Medicare, how to make our bases as strong as they can be, how to care for our millions of veterans, including the 65,000 in my district. You get my point. I have to tell...
I do, and my problem is with your point. Sorry, can I just interject? My problem with that is the American system in general to do with bathrooms was once segregated, and that was a civil liberties issue that took place at a federal level. So for somebody like me, this is, again, a civil liberties issue that should take place at a federal level.
Well, I hear you. My view, though, was when President Obama got involved in that, I couldn't help but wonder, why on earth is the President of the United States telling schools what bathrooms children have to use? I think that is a misfocus that takes him away from the things that are most critical. And I really believe that local school boards, which are populated with local, committed, smart people, I think that they can manage that. I really believe that.
You actually don't even have to have a high school diploma to serve on a local school board. Do you know that?
Well, I don't. I guess that matters. That probably is defined based on different states. But I'm just, Sally, I hear you, but I'm telling you what my honest opinion is.
Genuinely, I completely respect that. I would just like to appeal to you, if I could, to view this in kind of a wider thing. I don't believe President Obama, and obviously I can't think for him, was trying to tell students what bathroom to use. I think he was trying to tell students, you're allowed to use this bathroom. And I would just like, if you take anything, and I'm so grateful, I genuinely am, I love the democratic process, and I genuinely am very grateful for you being honest with me and for doing this telephone town hall tonight. But I would just like you, if you take anything from our conversation, just to think a little bit about our Abigail and what she might go through.
I hear you, and I appreciate you calling, Sally, and asking your question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Congressman.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, Sally.
Okay.
Let's take one more, please. That's okay. Ron, you're on the line with Congressman Tom MacArthur. Thank you for calling. What's your question today? And if you could please limit it to one question, that would be great.
Yes, I would like to thank the Congressman for taking my question. And it has to do with the environment and how he's going to protect the aquifer and our wonderful Barnegat Bay with the loosening of all the EPA regulations and with Pruitt being nominated and taken in as an advisor on the cabinet. I mean, there has to be somebody to stand up and protect our water for our children. This is the only planet we have. What are your plans, and how can you help us as your constituents to have clean drinking water?
Well, Ron, you've asked a host of questions around the environment, around our resources, and that's a great question. Let me mention a few things. It's actually a timely question. I had 2 meetings today, just this day, on some of those very issues. I met this morning with Clean Ocean Action, and the whole purpose was to talk about funding for clean water along our coastlines, clean drinking water, and also to talk about how to make sure our ocean is kept clean. And we agreed on some next steps together to try to work on things that can improve that. And then I went over to the water treatment plant here in Toms River today as well to get a better sense of how the aquifer works, how it's replenished, how they keep our drinking water clean. Very critical issues. With regard to the Bay, we are one of 28 estuaries in the country that are part of the National Estuary Program. I was a co-sponsor last year when we reauthorized that, and I have pushed for additional funding and got some additional funding, not only for the National Estuaries Program, but also for a similar program that affects the Delaware Valley and on the other side of the district that covers the whole watershed around the Delaware River. We've got to protect these areas. I introduced a bill last year. I may introduce it again this year, and that is to try to get individuals and businesses to get a tax credit for putting buffers between their house and the bay. I want to encourage people and businesses to create buffers, to do better filtering of drainage, and to keep fertilizers and other things from leaching into the bay. That's really what's causing the stress in Barnegat Bay is nitrates and phosphates and things that are causing over-nutrification and causing algae blooms and conditions that are choking life out of the bay. So there's a lot of things we can do.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
How about the Pinelands and the planned pipeline that is going to be going through it? It's
I think you're talking, there's a number of pipeline projects. I think you're talking about the Southern Reliability Link that goes through...
The gas.
Yeah, part of the Joint Base.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I think that has to be built very carefully and without environmental impact. It's natural gas, so it's not like pumping oil. Let me finish, if you would, Ronald. It's not like pumping oil across the Pine Barrens, and... The Joint Base commander has written to me, and I've met with him. He's asking for that energy redundancy for the base, which is critically important. The Ocean County Mayor's Association has asked for that because we're paying a lot more for natural gas than Pennsylvania, just one state away. And so, lastly, I actually tried to get that pipeline rerouted. I met with the CEO of the utility. I talked to him about concerns from the towns where the pipeline was going through, and he told me the reasons why he couldn't do it. And I'm not in a position to force that, but when he went before the Board of Public Utilities, and that's a state matter, they approved the pipeline route. So I don't want you to think that I've done nothing to try to work on that. I do support, though, bringing natural gas to Ocean County. I think that people need cheaper fuel.
Why would you even chance the pollution of the cleanest aquifer on the East Coast?
Okay.
For what possible reason?
Ronald, I'm not sure I grasp your question.
The question is, why would he chance destroying the ecology of that aquifer by installing that pipeline?
Ronald, I hear you. Just realize that the Pine Barrens is 1.1 trillion acres. It's a huge land mass. You can't go from west to east through South Jersey without going through some part of it. You can't do it. And so I think you have to focus on doing it as safely as possible, and recognize we're not talking about oil where if there's a leak it goes into the ground and into the aquifer. You're talking about gas, which if there's a leak...
You're still ripping up the ground, destroying habitat, you name it. And we know how BP is, and the oil companies and all large businesses are when it comes to the environment. This administration is easing up on all anything. They're going to do away with the EPA, for God's sake.
Well, I'm not going to support that. I think the EPA has an important role. Sometimes it overreaches, but it has an important role. Look, Ronald, I respect where you're coming from, and I owe you, as your representative, my honest opinion. I'm not going to give you a song and a dance because I can tell what you want to hear. I'm telling you what I believe, and I can tell that you disagree with me, but I owe you my honest answer. I will keep, although I disagree with you on this one particular issue, I want you to know I will keep fighting for Barnegat Bay, for a clean ocean, for our drinking water. I will keep doing everything I can to keep the Pine Barrens pristine. And even though we may disagree on this one issue with the pipeline, I want you to know that we probably agree on a whole lot of others. And I'll work with some really fine environmental groups, like I mentioned, Clean Ocean Action, Save Barnegat Bay. There's a lot of great organizations here in South Jersey that are doing what you and I both believe needs to be done, and that's protect our environment.
Ronald, thank you for the call. And we'll be talking to you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congressman, just clarify this for me. That line, from what I understood, that's going through a developed part of the pipeline. Is that right? It's already, it's not going through virgin territory.
I couldn't answer that with finality, Tom. It's been a while since I looked at it, and
I know that the South Jersey line is going over to the one in Cape May.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the map again to see whether there's some pristine territory that it's also.
But I do
through.
know that the Joint Base Commander signed off on that. That leads to another issue, which is the Joint Base itself and development down here, both of which are on the rise. The Joint Base now has that commission for the K646A, and you need to have that energy. It's got to get here somehow because the old lines are not going to supply it.
Well, the reason, and this gets a little away from the pipeline, but the reason that I fought so hard for the KC-46 tanker is because I wanted a long-term critical mission that would secure the base for decades to come. And the KC-46 is that kind of a mission. Of the 80 missions at the base, it's sort of the linchpin. And so initially I got language actually passed into law that prevented them from moving the KC-10s because I wanted to keep them until they were ready.
You kept those things alive.
I wanted to keep them alive until we were ready to make our bid for the new ones. And we did. We still have the 10s, and now we've got the 46s that have been assigned. But it's not only one thing that keeps the base alive. Creating energy redundancy is another potential cost saver. There's been talk about different ideas of energy production in that area. There's a lot of things that we can do to help secure the base, and that is 40,000 direct jobs in South Jersey. Overall, if you look at all of the businesses, the restaurants and the delis and the dry cleaners and such, it's estimated to be 100,000 jobs depend on that base. And so there's always a balancing of things. Mm-hmm. And I think we've got to fight for a safe pipeline, but if I can do one more thing to secure our joint base, I feel like I owe that to South Jersey.
And, it isn't just the joint base. There's development going. There are just shy of 600,000 people now just in Ocean County in the winter. And it's like 1.5 million in the summer. That figure is only going to rise as development. Lakewood is on course to be the third largest community in the state by 2020. Yeah. All of this is going to require energy. We've got a nuclear plant that's going away in 2019. Yeah. And so we have to start thinking about energy.
Yeah, and just one last thing on that. I looked at a number, and this is old now. It's probably 1.5 years old, but it was comparing natural gas prices in one town in New Jersey to Pennsylvania. Just, just a stone's throw away. And we were paying over 15 times the cost for a unit of natural gas than Pennsylvania. Why? Because of the infrastructure difference. And so, and that's the hard part. I know people don't like the idea of pipelines, but you got to move fuel if you want to make use of it, and if you want to have the cost savings from it.
And if you're gonna invite people to live here, they've got to use something. And the more there are, the less energy there's going to be to go around, unless we have something to do with it. Now, let's go to John in Toms River, okay? Because I know he's been waiting. John, thank you for calling. If you can limit it to one question, I'd appreciate it. And what would be that question for Congressman MacArthur?
Thank you very much, Mr. MacArthur, for taking my question. I actually had two, but I'll be very quick, very concise. My first question, Mr. MacArthur, you mentioned earlier about people outside of your district. One of the things, and I don't mean this in an incendiary kind of manner, but being from, Randolph and North Jersey, one of the biggest issues facing those of us in Toms River is the Flood Insurance Reform Act. For those of us that aren't, beachfront condos and several blocks from the bay, yet still in a flood zone, are facing flood insurance increases for the next 10 years. The Flood Insurance Reform Act just kicked the can or delayed the implementation of the bigger Waters Flood Act. And many of us homeowners are facing significant increases. We don't know where the market's going to be in 6, 7, 8, 9 years, where the rates are going to be, how to plan for home values, equity, tuition, retirement, et cetera. It's a huge issue for those of us that live here year-round in your district. So I would really like you to address that, especially being from the insurance industry. And second, real quick, without risking dealing in hypotheticals, a larger concern nationally is the president. And as you've said, you're going to keep your eyes open. Many of us are concerned about his mental health and some of his business dealings, et cetera. At the risk of dealing in hypotheticals, and we won't have a back and forth, I will end after this. I await your response, sir. Can you give us some kind of line in a stand, some hard point where you would begin to support impeachment or other restrictions against some of these issues facing the president? Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay, John, I'll address both. Yes, I'm all over the flood insurance issue. I spent 30 years in the insurance industry, and I've worked in that space, so I understand it. And in the 13 years that I've been in Ocean County, I have experienced some of the same flood insurance issues that other people have, where my home was rezoned and I saw my rates jacked up. At one point, half my home was in one flood zone and half was in another, and I had to fight with the over the mapping process. So I get the issues. The main reason that I fought to get on the Financial Services Committee and then on the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee, which I was successful in getting on both, was because of flood insurance. There are people in Congress, unfortunately even in my own party, that want to shut down the flood program and put it on a path to extinction. And the reason I'm in the middle of that is to make sure that that doesn't happen, to make sure that flood insurance is available, affordable, to make sure there's a federal backstop for flood, and then to make sure that people's flood claims are handled fairly, which has not happened since Sandy. So if I were to give you my top 3 or 4 priorities, legislative priorities for the entire year, I can tell you that flood is right up at the top of the list. And I'm working on it every week. I've had a lot of meetings on it already. And I actually have 2 pieces of legislation in process that we're writing, and they deal with affordability and they deal with mitigation and trying to make more funds, federal funds, available to both communities and to the individual through their flood policy for mitigation. So I want you to rest assured I am working at that. With regard to...
I guess, would you say you see a final solution prior to the expiration of the extension of the Act, or do you think this is going to be an ongoing battle every Congress? Sorry, that was my last follow-up.
Well, the Act expires on September 30th, and if the program were not renewed, they would be, by law, unable to write new flood insurance as of October 1st. So my commitment is that we get a flood reauthorization done well before that. I don't want to flirt with that deadline. There's I don't remember the exact number of members of Congress, but that are in the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee, but I think it's maybe 10 or 12 of us. So out of 435 members of Congress, I'm one of a very small number that are actively working on this reauthorization. I've spent a good deal of time with the chairman of the committee talking about some of my ideas. He's supportive, but I'm as I've said, John, there are those who want to shut it down and put it on a path to extinction, and so that's what I'm up against. And my expectation is we'll have some success. I don't know exactly what that'll look like because I'm not deciding on my own, but I expect to get this done before the expiration date. And
thank you very much. As you said, out of 435, as a congressman, your position nationally in regards to the president is significant. 1 out of 435 is huge. It's what protects us from.
Well, John, I heard your second question. Why don't you give me a chance to answer it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, what I was trying to say was that regardless of what political party or what color tie you wear, your position as a congressman is immensely important in regards to these.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want you to know I take that very seriously. I also take very seriously the elective process, and I know that there are those who thought our president was unfit or unstable or whatever before he was elected, but the American people elected Donald Trump as president. And
yes, sir, but the power of impeachment lies within the Congress.
Now wait a minute.
Hypothetical.
Wait a minute. John, you asked a question. Give me a chance to answer it. Impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors. That is not something that you throw around lightly because you don't like somebody's personality or what they say or how they do it or what they stand for. And so I'm not going to give you lines in the sand about hypothetical acts. I'm going to give our president a chance to do what he was elected to do and to fulfill the oath that he swore to the Constitution. That doesn't mean I'm going to give him or anybody a free pass, but I'm not going to start with the presumption shortly after he became president that he somehow ought to be thrown out because the people that didn't want him to be elected in the first place are unhappy with it. I don't think that that's a fair result. It wouldn't have been fair 8 years ago for people to want to throw out, and some did, I suppose, but it was unfair for people to want to try to find a reason to delegitimize President Obama. The American people have elected a president, John, and we need, for the sake of our country, to try to come together and give our president a chance to succeed. I believe that with all my heart. And if he does things I disagree with, or he says things I disagree with, I will speak out. I have never been shy about sharing my opinion and about fighting for what I believe in. I didn't always agree with our president when he ran for office, and I said so then, and I will continue to say so. But I'm not going to draw lines in the sand. I think I would really encourage people to realize that this is the elective process, and let's try to move forward. That's what I believe should happen.
John, thank you very much for the call. We are totally out of time. I appreciate everyone who called tonight, and I just want to remind you again, if you are as committed to the heroin and opiate problem as you are to Congressman MacArthur and to this country, you'll be at OCC March 20th, 7 to 8 p.m. We'll see you there. Congressman, thank you for coming in.
Tom, my pleasure, and I appreciate the callers too. I always welcome a dialogue, debate. It makes me better, and I want people to know what I think, even if they disagree. That's what that's what America is all about. That's what makes our country so great, is that we can have civil dialogue about the issues that matter so much to the country.
Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure.
Ask the Congressman is a presentation of Townsquare Media's Jersey Shore News Division. Our producer and call screener is Mark Anthony. Video coordination provided by Bradley James. Technical support, Tom Tremblay. And our Director of Operations is Steve Artolino. My name is Tom Mongelli. Thank you for joining us. Have a pleasant evening.
You've been listening to Ask the Congressman with 3rd District Representative Tom MacArthur, a presentation of WOBM News on Beach Radio, 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com. Live from the Preferred Home Healthcare Studio, this is Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com with another hour of beach music.